Future staff and planning everything for a big blowout. Then the pandemic hit and we had to postpone. We still wanted to celebrate in person though, so we decided to wait the pandemic out. Time continued on, and so did COVID-19. As we got toward the end of November, we decided we couldn't wait to celebrate with you any longer. So even though we can't be in person, and even though Better Futures is unable to join us, Beacon has come together tonight to finally see the inside of Great River Landing. A quick breakdown of what we'll be doing over the next 30 to 40 minutes. First, we'll hear from Beacon's president and CEO, Lee Blondes, on how things have been going at Great River Landing over the building's first 16 months. This includes both successes and difficulties. Then it will be my pleasure to introduce everyone to James Garrett Jr., the tremendous architect of GRL, who is going to fill us in on how the building was designed and how that design adds or aids Better Futures in doing their tremendous work. Finally, I'll share a tour video Dylan from our communications team and I were able to make at Great River Landing a couple months ago, and share how everyone can continue to be involved in Beacon's work. Before any of that, however, I want to start with a massive thank you to everyone on this call. Most of you are donors, and Great River Landing would not exist without your support. And I'm not just talking about monetary donations. Knowing how much you support the work was and remains so vital to what we do at Beacon. So thank you. For those of you who aren't donors, perhaps you're an elected official. I know Commissioner Angela Connolly was planning to be here tonight. And maybe you helped on the governmental end. Perhaps you belong to a congregation that showed up to hearings or spread the word to others. Perhaps tonight is your introduction to Beacon and you've never heard of Great River Landing before. Regardless of who you are, by being here, you have joined a movement that says it is inexcusable in our society that we have unhoused neighbors. So thank you. With that, I'd like to introduce Beacon's president and CEO, Lee Blondes. Earlier today, Lee was unfortunately called into a very important meeting regarding Emerson Village, our family supportive housing development in North Minneapolis, at this same time. But I was able to record her remarks, and I'm going to play them for you now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lee Blondes, the CEO of Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative, and I'm so excited to have our Beacon Now focus on Great River Landing. I want to start with a huge thank you. Great River Landing was one of the most complex developments that we've ever done, and your gifts made creating Great River Landing possible, and your ongoing gifts support the continued operation of Great River Landing so that we can provide quality housing and services. I want to share a story from last fall from one of the very first residents that moved into Great River Landing, and just to understand who it is that is getting housing and services today that was never possible in our community before. A man in his 50s, but seemed older because he had literally been living on the streets. He'd been riding on the trains. He had past felony convictions. He was homeless, he was unemployed, and he was hopeless. And when he was in the process of coming into Great River Landing, our wonderful service provider, Better Futures Minnesota, was one of the staff was meeting with him and explaining about this wonderful new housing development, but also all the services, the support in terms of getting a doctor's appointment and dentist and the mental health evaluation and supported employment and all of these wraparound services. And his response was, "You're lying." And of course, with the skills of the staff of Better Futures, they understand that that's not a personal statement. It's a statement about the system. This is not normally available to people. Why would someone trust that all this wonderful things was going to happen for someone's life who had only had disappointment upon disappointment upon disappointment? And so I remember hearing the story from Better Futures on the day he had been there now for 2 months. And it was a snowy day. This was back in December, about a year ago, before COVID was here. This man in his 50s had spent the day shoveling snow as part of his supported employment, hard physical labor. And he walked around and he shook hands with all of the Better Future staff and said, thank you so much. I can't believe I have this job and I have this place to live. And so just that moment of what that life had changed. And as you know, this isn't just a job and a home. It is about hope. That suddenly someone who had thought nothing would change in their life suddenly had all sorts of opportunities opening up. So thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be able to be the one to share that story with you. I really want to lift up our wonderful partner, Better Futures Minnesota. The extraordinary work they've done to engage residents, to break through some of that normal resistance and doubt that people come into supportive housing with, and to embrace and engage people and move people forward in their opportunities for a new life. We finished our lease up last December, and then 2020 arrived. I'm sure I don't have to tell you just how challenging a year this has been, and that everything that you might have experienced, imagine 10 times, well, I don't even know if it's 10 times, 100 times, but it's multiplied for the residents. The impact on COVID in the prison system, the concern we're very proud. We designed community suites with a shared kitchen, a shared living room so that we could build community. And then COVID arrived, and we suddenly had to worry about shared living spaces and shared bathrooms. And the weight, of course, and we know that COVID has disproportionately impacted African American residents and those with underlying conditions, which are our residents. And then the murder of George Floyd and the trauma that our residents feel. We have a number of residents at Great River Landing who'd been shot by police prior to their incarceration. And so trauma upon trauma, it layers on and it brings up past trauma, and the tension, the mental health, all of the anxiety in the building starts to grow. We've got COVID, and now we've got police violence. And one of the things I just really need to name as an organization that unfortunately is not nearly as racially diverse on our staff as we would like, that how eye-opening it is to work with Better Futures that has a predominantly Black staff, and to understand that the trauma and the impact of COVID and George Floyd is not just on the residents, but on the staff themselves. So I just really want to lift up the extraordinary dedication and commitment of the staff of Better Futures, our property management, to be there through all of this, to help hold people through this crisis and to move forward. And a great example of that is we had a recent incident where a resident was in a mental health crisis. They were not masked. They had previously refused to be tested for COVID. And in their mental health crisis, the staff stepped in to try to de-escalate and calm the person down. It was unfortunate. They did need to go to jail. And it was in jail that resident was tested, and because he had been unmasked in that mental health crisis, and the staff had stepped in anyways out of care and concern, even though he was unmasked, a number of the staff have become ill. Happy to say almost, they've now recovered and are back, but once again, a disproportionate impact on those that are African American. So I just really want to lift up how hard 2020 has been. It's always challenging in our first year in any of our supportive housing. It takes a while for the staff and the residents and a community to really get established in a new building. Everybody's new, everything's new. So it always takes us a little time to meet that stride. But Better Futures has continued to provide trauma-informed care, the job readiness programming, and supported employment throughout 2020. But it has been a challenge. Our turnover has been a little bit higher than we would hope because 2020 has just made things harder. I also want to lift up that it's been challenging for our organizations as well. Better Futures Minnesota went through a major leadership change as they have a new CEO, Charlene Leach, and a new Vice President of Integrative Care, Maisha Giles. They're just both wonderful, and they'll provide wonderful leadership for Great River Landing and for Better Futures Minnesota. But Charlene just joined in the last, about a month ago, and those two positions had turned over in February, right as we had fully leased up, and then of course right before COVID hit. So it's been a challenge, but Futures Minnesota has a strong board. We really believe that we will continue to work together to be able to get to hit our stride in 2021. I also want to name that Beacon chose to switch property management companies this year in our supportive housing portfolio. And so that brought more change to Great River Landing as well. And we continue to be able to do everything we can support Great River Landing, including my very active involvement to be able to get us through this first year and into a stable 2022. So I just want to thank you for being here to learn about the building and the wonderful design that James will share with you, to hear from the residents and staff about what it's like to be at Great River Landing, and to thank you. You know, the work that happens at Great River Landing, the service funding for Better Futures Minnesota, comes from government grants and foundations, and funding from Beacon that comes from gifts from donors like yourself. So welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person. I'm actually got pulled away for a strategy meeting for our very next housing development in Minneapolis, Emerson Village. And so, as you know, Beacon never rests on her laurels, but is always seeking to create more homes for those that need it the most. So thank you. Take care. Bye.
I want to thank Lee again, even though she's not here for that. Thank you for recording that and sharing the inside look at Great River Landing. To add just a bit to Lee's remarks, it is the difficulties that Better Futures Minnesota and Beacon and we've all faced over the last few months that has prevented them from joining tonight's celebration. Their focus is on ensuring that all residents are getting what they need, and we deeply honor them for that, and are so excited to build and grow our partnership over the many years to come. Next, we will be hearing from Great River Landing's architect, James Garrett Jr. James, according to his website, I'm going to say what he says here, artistically creates technologically advanced, resilient design that articulates an evolving comprehension of the 21st century city. As a visual artist, writer, and architect, he creatively expresses the urban condition through inspired design. His work employs diverse media to explore complex theoretical topics from a unique ethno-experiential perspective. Having heard James talk about Great River Landing before, I can guarantee you what he's about to go into will explain everything that I just said. But I want to point out one other thing. James has a number of awards listed on the website of his company Formula, but not yet listed there is the fact that just a couple weeks ago, he was awarded his profession's highest honor, the AIA Minnesota Gold Medal. He and his partner are the first Black architects and the youngest architects ever to receive this award. On behalf of Beacon, I would like to congratulate him on this tremendous honor and welcome him to this call. James.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Craig. And thank you, everybody who's here. I know a number of you over the years from working on this project in various capacities, whether it was fundraising, whether it was the support that you guys lent when we were going to community meetings, when the project was in front of the city council. So many of you guys showed up and really put your weight behind this effort. And that work really helped grease the wheels for, you know, the design that sort of followed and the construction process that culminated in the building that we have in front of us. And I'm very proud of our work with you guys, our partnership with you guys, and with Better Futures. I'd like to take a little bit of time to just run you through the design process and sort of talk you through some of the really important spaces and some of the important features of the building. Hopefully you'll be able to get a picture, a more complete picture, when you see the other videos and the tour that's upcoming, and you'll be able to have a greater appreciation for our process and our partners and the way all the different pieces kind of came together. So I'm going to share my screen now. Yes. So Great River Landing was really a labor of love for us at Formula. This project really intersected with a number of very important things that our community struggles with. The criminal justice situation, criminal justice reform, low income and supportive housing, and really just dealing with a population that's trying to transition themselves and get themselves back into the workforce and back into community and society in a productive way. So this is something that was a passion for us. We appreciate the opportunity to serve you, and we hope that the building that we've sort of left with has a legacy of positivity and great memories and great experiences for the people that are going to live there. I think the most important part that I want to start out with is the design process does not start with putting pen to paper. For us, the design process begins with formulating and organizing the proper team to be able to take on the challenge that was in front of us. And so for each project, we select unique partners to be able to sort of carry the ball forward in different ways, with everyone playing a different and really important role. So the first thing that I'll say is that we had the core Formula team that you see there in the middle, which was myself as design architect, with my business partner, Nathan Johnson, as the project architect, with Lissa Washington as our wonderful, super detail-oriented project manager, with my beautiful wife, Paola Sanchez Garrett, as a design technician on this project, and Michael Lima, who really runs our New York office. He's based out in New York now, but he was here and he was the project designer that assisted me. So that was our core team. And we realized that there were some things that we were lacking, and we wanted to go out and bring in people that would fill in the gaps and fill in the holes and make our team as complete as possible. The first person that we brought in was Rosemary Delata, who was with Concentric Architecture at the time. She is a specialist in affordable housing compliance. She's been on both sides of it. She's been on the nonprofit housing side, and she's also been on the city government side. So she understands the compliance challenges in a way that we thought was really superb. And so she agreed to partner with us. That really set us at ease to make sure that she was going to see the blind spots and see some of the things that maybe we didn't see coming, as this was our first supportive housing, affordable housing project. And most importantly, I think Roger Cummings, we brought in Roger Cummings from Juxtaposition Arts, who's one of my close friends, one of my high school friends, frequent collaborator and co-conspirator in all things artistic. And we wanted him and his vision and his ideas to really help us get to know the men in the program and to really understand who we were designing for and why, right? Because when you start to understand that and you have a fundamental understanding of that, then all the decisions that you start to make sense. As you know, Beacon Interfaith Housing was partnered with Better Futures Minnesota, which made it really interesting for us because we essentially had two clients. So on one hand, we had a housing developer who had, a certain set of concerns and things that they're responsible for. But then on the other hand, we also had a service provider who was going to actually be, living in the space, managing the space, and running programs out of the space. And so we had to make a space that served both of those needs. And sometimes those were distinct needs and competing needs. Here we are. This was the first meeting that we hosted. It was the kickoff meeting. And we have Roger Cummings here and Lissa Washington running the meeting. We really wanted to introduce this arts-based engagement process that we're kind of known for now, but it was a new thing 4 years ago. And it was something that, people had to get used to. So we want to have a kickoff meeting with the decision makers and folks from Beacon staff and also Better Futures decision makers and their staff, and just have some activities where we got to know each other. We talked about our values, our shared values, and basically we said we want to hold everyone accountable to the values that they're expressing, and we want to be able to create a process around that. So it was really important that we say that this process is going to be unique. It's going to be different. Please bear with us. We're going to get to a good place. Through that first meeting, you can see the upper photos. We did button making, and we each went around the circle, and Roger asked us, what are the values that we're bringing to the table? What are the things? Who do we feel like we are, and what are the things that we feel like are important? And why are we here? Why do we do this difficult work? And so everyone had a chance to say who they were and what they thought about themselves and their role in the process. And then, we had some fun and we made buttons, and everybody got to wear the buttons. And then when you had the button on, then that meant that you had to be accountable to the things that you said that you were going to do and the role that you said that you were going to play in the process. So that's how we kicked off things. It was a great meeting. I think it was a lot of fun. We got to know each other. And then the second meeting that we had for engagement, Roger really ran that with just staff, primarily from Better Futures, to get to know the folks that were going to be working with the folks that live there. And so the people providing the services to the residents are super important. We wanted to center them in this process too, say that they're significant, and we wanted to hear their concerns, their ideas, their hopes and aspirations as well. And so did some fun activities, some painting and some just creative stuff, and just got to know one another. The next set of 4 meetings, we really wanted to center the men in the program. We wanted to really say that you guys are important, you guys are significant. And it may have been that in a lot of these guys' lives, no one had asked them their opinion or asked them what they were interested in, what they wanted, what they struggled with. We wanted to make sure that we centered them in their experiences and their traumas and their hopes and their ideas. And we did a series of fun activities with them. Roger led them in sort of different found object sculptures and gave them a chance to talk about some of the things that they wanted to do and the things that they were interested in. One of the most important things about the process was that we started to really learn through repetition, really. There were themes that started to repeat themselves over and over. And so as Roger and I talked and we debriefed, we started to come up with some ideas and themes. And so I asked him to begin to create some graphic icons that talked very specifically about some of the really important themes that started to come up over and over again. The first one was love. That was something that was very important to the men in the program. It came up over and over. The next one was faith. That was something that also was a recurring theme and was sort of at the core of a lot of their lived experience. That's how they made it through the situations that they went through in order to even be here. And then family support was something that really came up over and over again. These guys talked about their kids constantly. It was something that we really had to sit back and rethink our program and our initial design concepts, because it didn't consider the importance of family and kids. This building, we decided, needed to be a family building after sort of going through this process of getting to know the guys. Acceptance, future change, and inclusion were the other topics that sort of came up and the things that were really important to these guys. So once we kind of made it through that process and we began to get this information and this feedback, we wanted to really think clearly about areas in which we could integrate these concepts and these ideas and infuse them into the building itself. So we thought about ways to sort of mark that entrance, that main entry, and make it special and make it really stand out, and to give it a sense of pride and a sense of dignity about coming home. And so we looked at the faith piece, and we found a way to sort of abstract that faith piece and cut it into strips and integrate those strips into that main entry. We also backlight our buildings. We use these color changing LEDs that can start to really express a changing sort of relationship between the people on the inside and the world. These color changing lights give them the ability to say how they're feeling, what mood they're in. They can set it on a cycle that just repeats itself and creates patterns. For special holidays, they can set it at a certain color and say, hey, we're celebrating in here. So it was a fun thing, and it was something that we thought gave them a lot of control over their environment. And for people that have been incarcerated and haven't had much control over their lives and over their environment, we thought that this was especially important and poignant. The next thing that we thought was important was to bring that concept onto the inside of the building and to be able to create, again, a lighting situation that was changeable. If you look over here, there's a small control there. They can change the lights themselves, express the mood that they're in, express the joy that they're feeling, the sadness, whatever. But it was another fun way to be able to have some control over their environment, the environment that they're calling home. Another really important piece is that one of the things that the guys do at Better Futures is deconstruction. So they do architectural deconstruction. They deconstruct buildings and houses and farm buildings and structures, and they salvage. They do architectural salvage, and they save those really important pieces, and they're able to resell them in their own space on Minnehaha Avenue. They have a reuse center. And so one of the things that we wanted to commit to early was integrating the work that these guys do into the public areas of the building. We wanted them to see this every day. We wanted everyone that came to visit to see the fruits of these guys' labor. We wanted them to be featured, to be centered, and to say, hey, there's beauty and dignity in what they do. You know, we feel like there's healing in art, there's also healing in work. And so we wanted to show that off and really have that relationship with the rest of the world. So this is the front lobby space. This is made up of wood that they pulled out of different buildings and structures. One of the instructions that they gave me as we were getting ready to install this was that they said, hey, we don't want this to be too beautiful. Said, you know what, we've had a lot of problems in our lives. We're imperfect people. We don't want it to look or feel too perfect. We think there's beauty in imperfection, though. Can you make it beautiful but not perfect? And I said, you know what? Let me see what we can do. So we came up with this pattern where we mix different types and different species of wood. So we've got birch, and we've got pine, and we've got maple. We've got all these different types of wood that normally would never be mixed, right? And then we have different sizes and lengths and widths of wood, and we created sort of a mosaic. So it kind of has a rustic look. Everything doesn't quite look the same, but it kind of starts to fit together and feel together. And when you add the lighting into it, it starts to really create an environment that feels welcoming and warm. And it's a space that the guys like to stand there, and they like to sort of be in that environment. So I feel like, you know, maybe we got it right there, because, you know, they said beauty and imperfection. And so that's what we tried to produce. We also carried this theme onto the reception desk. We wanted to make sure the reception desk also had the same sort of reclaimed lumber of different widths and sizes and lengths, and we wanted to give it a similar feel. Here's just sort of looking at that area near the mailboxes. This is bringing that same sort of gesture, welcoming people with this wood into the community space where meals happen every day in the morning and in the evening. And this is a place where guys gather and they talk to one another and fellowship and get to know each other. We wanted this to be very sort of public. We wanted people to see these guys getting together and eating together and being together. We wanted to show that off. So it's at the corner of the building right on 5th Street. And we wanted to make it a space that was really proud, that they could really take pride in and be proud of. This is the classroom space. This is the gym space. We know that with trauma, it strikes and it happens. Anxiety happens at any time of the night. We wanted to create a space that guys could always feel like they could go to burn off some calories or burn off some extra energy if they couldn't sleep, if they were having, you know, some issues, that this was a space that they could use physical activity to help them treat their trauma. This is a space that started out as a showroom space, and it sort of evolved into a showroom / conference room. So again, we've got the reclaimed wood all over the place on the floors, you know, on the knee wall there. We've got a 2-sided fireplace that heats up and warms up and can be seen from the outside. The idea is that this is going to be a portal from the neighborhood into the space to allow the neighbors in the North Loop to get to know these guys for the furniture, for the reclaimed wood, for all these interesting products that they have, and so that they could get to know their neighbors as the guys that do the cool stuff and not as though the scary guys that have been to prison, right? So this was something that, you know, we presented and promoted to the community. The community really responded well to this, and this was a really important piece of why they wanted to approve and unanimously support this project in the neighborhood. This is an art plan that Roger and I came up with. We looked at how do we express these concepts, these 6 really important concepts that the men over and over talked about and discussed during their time together. So we wanted to do it vertically. So the entry to the building has the faith piece and it welcomes you into the space. And then we wanted each floor as you moved up in the same place, in the same way, to be welcoming, to be dynamic, to be colorful, to be beautiful. And so we really started in the basement with the red, and we moved on up and have different pieces that are associated with each floor. So ultimately, the building itself, instead of denoting itself by floors, by numbers and letters, would denote and express itself by colors and by symbols, positive symbols that represent and reflect the story and the experiences as told by the men. So this piece right here is the love piece. This is the foundation. This is literally in the garage, in the basement. This is something that we really wanted to highlight and say, this is where, you know, people come in, they enter the building through the garage and they come up. The first thing that they see and that they're exposed to is love. This is on the main floor. So just above that, when you go up the stairs and the elevator core and you get out at the main floor, this is the faith piece, all together as one. As I said, it was sort of abstracted and integrated into the exterior facade there at the entry, but this is what the piece is all together. We created these didactics. This one explains the art process and Roger's process working with the men and the importance of the process and why we think that this is significant. And then on the left side of each piece on each floor, we have another didactic that explains what the piece is and what it means, what it's called and what it means. So this is faith. This is the ground floor. This is where, you know, so much really great stuff happens. And we thought that this was the most important element of the artistic project. This is the next floor up. This is the second floor directly above that. It's called acceptance. Just adjacent to acceptance is the children's playroom. Again, we learned from the men that getting back with their children, getting back in touch with their families was their most important priority. And so we really started to prioritize children. We were early enough in the design process when we were engaging and having these conversations that we could squeeze some square foot out of here and out of there and move some stuff around. And we actually were able to create this really nice space for children. And there's books in there now. There's some toys and Legos and things. But we really wanted to have a space that kids would want to come and visit their dads, and they would want to come back and say, I had a great time. I can't wait to come back and continue getting to know my father. And so this, again, this space was born out of the engagement process that we did. This is just a look at it's a 2-level space for gathering. It's essentially a lounge for residents. And as you can see, there's some doors here. There are offices that kind of are for staff, from Better Future staff, so that they're not all completely segregated, that there's some staff on some of the living floors as well. So if there's problems, if there's challenges, it's easier to engage, and they know that they're not alone. There's always some help that's just, you know, down the hall, and they don't have to go all the way to a different floor in order to get some assistance if they're having a challenge or a problem. So this one here is family support. So this is the 3rd floor. And then this is a typical unit. So we took the same color scheme and you know, we highlighted one of the accent walls on each floor so that it corresponded and correlated with the art piece that meets you at the stair and at the elevator. So humble, simple spaces, but you know, they're well appointed. They have everything that a guy would need to live self-sufficiently. If you go up to the next floor, we have a piece here called inclusion. And this is a really important piece because how do you include people that have been excluded from society for 5, 10, 20 years in some cases? So this is something that we thought was really important, that this building be part of that inclusionary process. Another aspect that happens at the ends of the floors here is a meditation space. One of the things that we learned about the guys in the program is that they were learning sort of how to deal with sort of conflict in different ways. Instead of in a confrontational way, sometimes there needs to be an evasive opportunity to just go take some time and just breathe free, right? And so we created these spaces where, you know, if there was too much going on or if there was a tense or a stressful situation, they would have an area to retreat to be able to go and work out those things. They pray, they meditate, all those kinds of things can take place in these little spaces. They're very well used. And then this is the ultimate top floor here. This piece is called Future Change. And it really talks to these guys wanting to make a change and to return back to society, full and whole and healed. So as you guys know, this is the exterior of the building. This is what it looks like sort of at dusk. This is a daytime image. At the bottom there on the corner is that community room that we looked at. If you turn and you go down the driveway, this is what it looks like as you turn to the rear of the building, the rear facade. We want it to be colorful. We want it to be dynamic. You can start to see the play area in the back. Again, came out of the situation where the guys talked about their kids so much and we wanted to make this a family-friendly space. So there's a nice little lawn out there that you can run around, and there's a little toddler area, and then there's a comfortable seating area. This is sort of looking at the area that's going down, the ramp that goes down into the garage on the rear of the building. This is my favorite part because it shows, it begins to show the solar panels that we have 122 Hanwha Q cells pointed at a 10-degree angle facing due south. They produce about 40 kilowatts of peak power, and they've averaged on a monthly average, it's been about 3.3 megawatts per month for the past year. So it's something that we think is important for all buildings, that we begin producing our own electricity and energy to cut down on our carbon footprints. And we think that technology is something that's important to be shared and to integrated into all spaces, not just for the wealthy or the elite, but for everyone. Every single project should have access to the types of technologies that are going to bring us into the future. So thank you again for the chance to serve. And we look forward to the next opportunity to work with you guys.
Thank you, James. It's been an absolute pleasure for us to work with you guys at Formula, and the building shows just, you know, the tremendous work that went into it. So thank you. Let's see. So I'll unpin you. As most of you know, Beacon is currently in the development process on 5 more buildings. BMO Seda in downtown Minneapolis, Cranberry Ridge in Plymouth, Vista 44 in Hopkins, Prairie Point in Shakopee, and Emerson Village in North Minneapolis. Emerson Village is actually practically right across 94 from Great River Landing. Now that Great River Landing is open, I'd like to ask each of you on this call to consider supporting Emerson Village. For every home Beacon builds, it costs approximately $15,000 before we even get to a groundbreaking. We call this $15,000 amount a seed. So for a 50-unit building like Emerson Village, we need 50 seeds or $750,000 to be successful. So far, we have 1 seed for Emerson Village, leaving a gap of 49 seeds or $735,000. We invite everyone to look within themselves and consider whether you can help us start to close this gap. Every donation in any amount does just that. Every donation in any amount gets us closer to creating supportive homes for families in North Minneapolis. Additionally, over the next 6 months and potentially in the coming days, based on the meeting that Lee is at right now, we may need to call on supporters to stand up and demonstrate their support for Emerson Village through phone calls, emails, or showing up on behalf of affordable housing. If you're willing to do so, please let us know in the chat and we'll get in touch with you. And now is the time I know many of you have been waiting for, a little video tour of Great River Landing. A couple months ago, I was fortunate enough to visit Great River Landing and sit down with staff and a resident. We weren't able to bring a full camera crew because of the pandemic, but my coworker Dylan did a fantastic job in difficult circumstances. So without further ado, I'm going to share Great River Landing.
Hi, my name is Craig Freeman. I'm the Community Connection Manager at Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative. Beacon is a collaborative of 100 congregations who are united in the vision that all people have a home. As an aspect of that vision, Beacon has created apartment homes, 18 of them across the Twin Cities. We're currently outside one of those buildings, Great River Landing. Great River Landing is 72 homes for men, primarily African American fathers, who have recently exited incarceration or experienced homelessness. Our on-site service provider partner here is Better Futures Minnesota, who provides employment and other services to the men so they can reach their dreams. Let's take a look inside.
Great River Landing is a great place to start for a lot of people who have not had a head start in moving forward in their lives, and for some people who have had kickbacks and barriers in front of them, and this is a place where they can get a start to get themselves back into life. We want to offer the opportunity for men to be able to have a job, be able to have a space over their head, to be able also to get a little more education into getting back into society.
Well, my name is Howard Hill. I'm 29. I've been in Minnesota for 5 years. I enjoy it here. Money-wise, it's a lot of resources here, so it's a good place to be. A place that you call home is like somewhere you can rest your head at. And anytime you have a problem with somebody, you can always come in and lock your door. Then you won't have to worry about nobody coming in, bothering you, so you at home. You're in your own comfort zone. You're in your own sanctuary.
Resident success story is that young man that you just met, Harold. Watching Harold come from complete homelessness to from sleeping on a train to coming to Great River Landing and going through the model and Better Futures and going through the model and the success he's had. And all of the men who have had success here, and some men who've gotten outside jobs and still continue to live here at Great River Landing. Those are success stories to me.
At Beacon, we work hard to create homes that are affordable, yes, but are more than that. They're homes that people want to live in. They're homes that people can be proud of. For that reason, all of our apartment buildings that we build come with amenities, on-site laundry, a gym here available for use, those types of things that people need. At Great River Landing, that includes things like 4 meditation rooms for residents to use to practice their self-care. That includes a family suite where families can come and stay in relation to their husband, father, brother, whatever the case may be, as well as lounge areas where men can gather and blow off steam together.
I'm seeing myself, I want to open up my own business and basically open up my own business and just giving back to the community.
What kind of business?
I want to be a mentor.
Beacon is looking to double the rate at which we create homes. we're looking to go from creating about 50 per year to about 100. At the same time, we are massively increasing the amount of work that we are doing to advance policy and change the laws that create homelessness in the first place. We're especially doing this through our program, Bring It Home Minnesota, which we believe would virtually end homelessness in the state of Minnesota. To do this, it takes money. For that reason, Beacon is currently in the middle of a 3-year comprehensive campaign during which we hope to raise $12 million, or $4 million per year. With your help and the help of foundations, corporations, and everyone else in society, we can do it.
Great River Landing is a place where you can start over, where you can start your life and start a new piece of life for yourself. I feel validated every time we get a man from incarceration, or every time we take a man off the street and he is able to come here and be successful and go through the academy program and get a job at Better Futures or outside of Better Futures. That's my validation. And to see men when they are able to see their kids again and be able to interact with family members and to be able to just have some normalcy in life.
Look for life in a bigger picture. It's not just take your mind from being so closed and open your mind up to your whole life, and your life would be a whole lot better. If you change your story, you change your life. And I feel like I changed my life a whole lot that I'm basically able to be talking to y'all.
Thank you all again for attending tonight. As mentioned at the end of the video, we are in the middle of a comprehensive fundraising campaign looking to raise a total of $12 million by June 30th of 2022. Tonight, I'm happy to let you know we have brought that number down to $4.9 million remaining. And to stay on course, we're looking to raise an additional $1.5 million by June 30th, 2021. If we can meet these numbers, we can reach our goal of doubling the number of homes we create each year, continue to increase our policy work at all levels of government. So with that, I'll say thank you one more time and wish you a pleasant evening and a very happy holidays. Thank you all.